100% of California is now in a drought, and if you could believe it, it could get even worse. Farmers in the state looking for a lifeline. Thousands of their acres of land dried up. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson is in Orville, California. Steve, you're on top of the second largest reservoir in the state overlooking Lake Orville. Show us what's going on there. Explain this one for us. It sounds pretty horrible.
It is horrible. It's horrible for millions of residents who rely on fresh water, and they do it based upon the reservoir system here in California. There are thousands of reservoirs across the state, and they supply not only towns, municipalities, cities, but also farmers who need this fresh water to irrigate crops and to do their work. We can actually show you right now what's happening at this reservoir. This is the second largest, as you mentioned, in the state. It supplies fresh water to millions. You can take a look and see that almost the sort of bathtub ring effect in the middle of the lake. The water level should be much higher. You should see it on the sides there. The water would actually be in that space, but it's not, obviously, because most of the water is gone here. It should be about 80% full. Right now it's at about 37%. That is dire for a number of reasons. If it goes any lower, it could risk a shutoff to the hydroelectric plant that this lake fuels, which means more stress on California's power grid, which is dangerous when we may be heading into a potentially dangerous fire season, but also just for the generality of it's hot and it's dry. And secondly, obviously, people need this water, especially, as I mentioned, farmers. Farmers are in a really bad way because they have to leave a lot of their crops fallow or unseeded. I spoke to a farmer in the Central Valley who said he has about a 2,000 acre farm. He's left 600 acres of that farm left unseeded. That is a huge cost to him, somewhere in the 7-figure range, and it means that he's had to already lay off about 70 workers. That could increase if this drought gets worse and the year goes on and it gets hotter and drier as it's expected to. Here's what he said about the fear of that. Listen to what he said.
I'm pretty scared this year, actually, yes, because we've never been in this kind of uncertainty before. I probably can't do this again next year. I can't do it again. It's too tough.
A lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. He's lucky in the fact that he diversified early. So he has a number of different crops that he could use, some that don't need as much water as others. So he has the ability to do that. And also, he's getting some of his water shipped in from other farms across the state that have more water. But some farms obviously have one crop and aren't able to do that. And even with him doing that, there's still just not enough water to go around. It is a real crisis that starts at the farm and will probably end up at the table. Allison?
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, Steve, because we know how important California is as a producer for this country. The Central Valley grows more than a third of the vegetables in the entire U.S., plus 2/3 of the fruits and nuts. I mean, what kind of supermarket shortages or shortages could we be looking at because of that? Should shoppers start getting concerned?
Yeah, fruits, berries, nuts, essentially all the artichokes you eat, all the almonds you eat come from California. So It's a huge deal. It's too early to tell whether or not this is going to cause, complete shortages in the grocery store a few months from now, simply because it's not obviously the harvest for a lot of these crops. But the farmer I spoke to, Joe Del Bosque, he was in that clip that you just saw, basically said that there is no way to avoid this if this goes on like it does. And this could last not only the next few months, but years and years and years. There's no way you won't feel the pain at the grocery store as those items become more limited because, again, they all come from the same place. That's what people need to realize. So if they don't get the water, we don't get the crops, we don't get the groceries when we head to the grocery store. Allison?
Steve, last month Governor Newsom announced $5 billion plus to deal with water infrastructure and droughts. Where is that money going, and will it help these particular farmers?
So a lot of the money is going into what's called groundwater management. In other words, the way municipalities handle how they allocate the resource of water, which is so key, so important. That will help. But also, it does provide some financial assistance for farmers. What it doesn't have, according to the farmer I spoke to, again, Joe, he said there isn't particular infrastructure for water storage. In other words, they aren't building more of these basins, more of these reservoirs that can hold water, so something like this doesn't happen again. That's the number one thing I've heard from farmers, especially in the Central Valley where the access is much more limited. They want more actual structures built to hold water so they don't have to borrow from other parts of the state so they can avoid this limited, sort of resource that's now going on and will continue to go on as we